Row observe change.
Roll 5, Robbie. Chance of 7.
Well, at least we won't come to blows like I did with Mr. Healy.
Oh, we don't have blows.
Labour authorities right across London.
This Sunday, the Liberal Democrat leader Paddy Ashdown, Labour's Mo Mowlam, and our cover story is Diana.
5. Camera 2 next. 3, 2, 1.
Herself during the campaign.
The reputation of a bit of a bully.
The truth is that politicians of all the main parties have spent quite a lot of time trying to win over editors, broadcasters, proprietors.
The press will not remain free for long in any country if that free press is not also a responsible press.
This way, please. I think the relationship between politics and media needs resetting.
What should be our greatest defence against the abuse of power had itself become an intolerable abuser of power.
The fear of missing out means that today's media, more than ever before, hunts in a pack, just tearing people and reputations to bits. But no one dares miss out. It's like a feral beast.
I think we're at a very difficult stage for our democracy. I think the power of the mainstream media to scrutinise and hold to account government is being blunted. It's coming at a time when there is loss of public confidence, both in politicians and in the mainstream media. The ownership of political communication has shifted, and that poses threats. But to understand how we got here, we need to look back.
It was too easy for the press. You know, we marvelled at these ridiculous things Mrs. Thatcher was doing. We'd never seen a prime minister sit in the mud with a calf before. It was all blissfully exciting.
Now listen, I'm not standing for 20 minutes now.
She saw newspapers as very important, very strong back in those days. No 24-hour news, no internet. Newspapers were still king, really, for the still image. And so she knew that was a powerful medium, and she'd use it.
When I was working for the Financial Times, I actually thought that Michael Brunson, who was the ITN political editor, was Mrs. Thatcher's hairdresser, because she seemed to have such wonderful contacts with her.
Just expanding a little on what you've said. So if we could possibly, you know, record about 15 or 20 minutes, we're thinking about a sort of 10-minute slot on
You
music.
don't want to be too expensive.
No, as always, you know.
Now,
if you...
how are we in shops?
I've always seen my job primarily as being a conduit, to take the time to explain to the public what people in power, people in government, people they've elected are doing and why. It used to be easier, it seems to me, because a cabinet minister or a prime minister even would be quite happy to talk to me directly rather than through a kind of whole filter of spads and media advisors.
And I can see why you think this, but I think that sometimes you don't necessarily realise quite the power that you have. If you're a politician and you're trying to get your message across, you're going through a filter.
Did it suit all those involved? Probably. Did it get to the nub of how governments operate at the time? Probably not.
I joined from the Financial Times, where I'd been a proper news journalist, and I'd spent hours picking up largely incremental pieces of information, and I had good contacts. And then I came to television and I discovered that so much of it was about logistics. So you were always at least 2 hours behind the curve. On very big occasions, you edited actually in this very pub where we were doing this interview. We had a little room above the bar, probably libelly we called the Tart's bedroom. And we used to edit in there, but it was incredibly hand-to-mouth.
We were just getting used to the sort of 4-hour news cycle, you know, morning bulletins, lunchtime, early evening, 10 o'clock.
And then a big change around the time that 24 News started.
Sky News. For the first time, you'll have round-the-clock access to news and information.
I mean, rolling news was the massive game changer.
From the world's newest purpose-built newsroom in London, Sky News, 24 hours a day.
The fact that there was all this airtime to fill, we could help feed it and we could help be part of that.
Well, Sky Television's been making the news itself today. Day one of the satellite revolution put us on television and in print all over the world.
Mr. Murdoch was confident that it had been important to break the BBC ITV duopoly.
Well, I think it's terribly important for Britain. I think it's good for the viewers.
I think the fact of television suddenly having the monopoly on the here and now immediacy, bang, 24 hours a day.
And that meant that politicians weren't preparing for set pieces anymore. They would always have to be on guard. They needed to make sure they came out of their houses looking ready to go to work, ready to govern.
See you all. Thank you very much indeed.
The fact that cameras are on their doorsteps, following them around the country, following them around Westminster, was a game changer.
Turn around, we can all get a picture. Let's go back a little bit. Okay. Let's go back a bit. Let's go back. Show this way, please.
She's coming out now. Now it's time for a new chapter to open, and I wish John Major all the luck in the world. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Right, you just want me to carry on as though you're not here? Right. Open or closed?
Both.
Both.
We just have a closing of the box.
A closing of the box.
Polls weren't that great for him, and yet it was quite relaxed, you know, there wasn't too much control.
Arabella is going to come in and go to the diary with you now on camera, is that all right?
That's fine.
Do you want to ask me anything about it?
When the economic policy blew up, he became more distrustful of the media. His relationships with some of the major editors, and obviously famously Rupert Murdoch, started deteriorating.
Morning, Mr. Murdoch.
It was very much the end of a Tory era, and you could feel that in everything, in the way in which the parliamentary party were, and in the way in which the press talked about John Major. And then, of course, there you have Tony Blair.
I'm really sorry to barge in on people like this on a Sunday. I mean,
it's all right, it's got to be done.
I know, but it's like, do you think it is going to be announced tomorrow?
Adam, every time people are always saying to me, when's the election going to be? And I keep saying to them, I'm the last person they tell.
The rising star, and as you know better than anyone, you know, this great communicator, a bit of a preacher, full of charisma, very fresh. So it was very difficult at that time to compete.
I think the important thing to realise is that we're doing every single major interview. You know, we'll be doing Dimbleby, both Dimblebys, all the Dimblebys.
And me.
You. So, I mean, it's not as if the public's not going to see us.
New Labour came to power convinced the powers that be would work against them. I think that changed over time. They became far more confident in their dealings with the media.
I remember the night of the election in '97, after John Major was deposed and Blair won. I shared an office with Trevor Kavanagh of The Sun, And he was putting his stuff away and he said, oh, it's going to be so different now. He said, under the Major years, we dealt on blood-red meat. We were the lions of the jungle. And now we're going to be thrown pet food by New Labour. And he was right.
A new dawn has broken, has it not?
Could you pick up the newspaper and open it?
We've been out of power for 18 years.
When you think of what we've done in 2 years, it's not bad, is it? We don't get much credit for it, really. Or do we? I suppose we do in a way.
We had terrible relations with parts of the press, particularly the Murdoch press.
So we could do with either him or Andrew Neil on our side, that's the only problem.
And they were powerful. I mean, they still are powerful.
I don't know, I haven't actually read the prison thing yet, I've just heard about it from Alistair.
I mean, my theory about Rupert Murdoch is that in the end he wants to be on the side of governments if possible, and he backs winners.
Yeah, and I've no doubt that was a big part of backing us.
John Major had been destroyed in part by the media, and they were determined that the same wouldn't happen again. He knew that in a modern world you had to get hold of the media. He knew that one of the ways to do it was to trade stories, which he did very effectively. He would give his favourites, people he could rely on, stories, and in return they would tend to do things quite politely and kindly to the Labour Party.
There were the Downing Street news conferences. I mean, how important were those for getting a message across?
Yeah, so I felt it was really important always to have a conversation. You're trying to elevate the debate a bit. Those types of press conferences, which, you know, would often go on, 45 minutes, an hour?
Hour and a half sometimes.
Hour and a half sometimes, yeah. So I thought that was a good thing to do, and it gave us the chance to go into things in depth. It meant that the media felt we weren't at least running from questions.
That she
You
described.
oppose his execution?
Adam, excuse me, that is just enough, thank you very much.
Why don't you say it?
Because I happen to want to express myself in my own way, if you don't mind. Thank you. Now, on identity cards.
We used to relish, Tony used to relish doing difficult interviews because they were often the way to get a message across. You'd had the whole years of Bernard Ingham and John Major and Gus O'Donnell and all those guys. You weren't even allowed to say that those briefings were taking place. We put them on the record. Everything I said could be quoted. I could be quoted as the Prime Minister's official spokesman.
What I think Mandelson, Blair and the like did was they professionalised the government operation to give a veneer of openness. In fact, I suspect that, you know, they tried very hard to make sure that they created an impression of openness. But the truth is they were screwing down the lid all the time.
People talk about spin and Tony Blair and all the rest of it, but you did actually expose yourself quite a lot.
You know, I always think with the spin thing, that was in part a media trope that was invented because we had a very effective media operation.
You had Peter Mandelson, Alistair Campbell, the whole New Labour machine, telling cabinet ministers what they could say.
Oh, he wrote the rule book. In many respects, in my early 20s, he was kind of the guide, the mentor.
You copied it?
I copied it, absolutely.
Alistair was an extraordinarily talented media operative. It wasn't just about interacting with the next day's news. It was also about the importance of getting a clear narrative across.
We wanted to be proactive. We wanted to feed the beast. We were framing things, offering stories, making announcements.
I remember being on a 747 on some trip, and the journalists were all on the upper deck, and Blair came up first, and he had a group of journalists around him, and then Alistair came up, and quite literally the pack moved from Blair to Alistair, and Blair sort of said rather plaintively, "I'm still here, fella."
So absolutely his master's voice.
Yeah. You did, you know, famously give Alistair Campbell a status to all the civil servants around, and a status I felt very often to speak on your behalf, sometimes before you'd even thought about an issue.
Yeah, well, that was occasionally an issue between me and Alistair, but because no one ever had that license.
Tony said, look, if you could see the stuff that's on my desk every day.
Yeah.
But I can't show it to you because it's intelligence. That was the thinking that led him to say, why can't we put out something that at least gives a sense of it?
Intelligence agencies said, well, look, yes, you can have this information and you can use it, but, you know, could you caveat here? Could you qualify there?
Reading the dossier, it appeared to say that within 45 minutes, Saddam Hussein could launch an attack on Britain.
I've got the report, it's on the way to me.
They say they never told us that.
But it's written, the words exist, don't they?
What can you tell us more, Adam, now
Well,
you've got the report?
let me show you the report. Here it is, Iraq's weapons of mass destruction, the assessment of the British government.
You use all your skills to make the best possible case for going to war against Saddam Hussein. And I remember, for example, with the 45-minute claim, you know, we were handed the dossier and there I was, you would say, gabbling outside Downing Street.
Saddam has continued to produce chemical and biological weapons, that he continues in his efforts to develop nuclear weapons.
Clearly, you know, I took the impression of what that was saying about the
Well,
45
Adam,
minutes, and no one corrected me.
The 45 minutes thing that has become sort of taken on a life of its own, go and read what it actually said. It was talking about the length between command and control decisions and activation.
I know, but you allowed us to hastily summarize it and exaggerate it in the process, and I would suggest you were happy that we exaggerated.
No, I don't agree with that. It was a big moment. There is still a debate about whether, you know, in the intelligence services, some people thought it was the right thing to do, some people not. But ultimately, that's why you have prime ministers that make big decisions. Tony decided that was the thing to do.
That he has existing and active military plans for the use of chemical and biological weapons, which could be activated within 45 minutes.
I think that sense of betrayal and distrust, and also I think some of the media probably a bit hot under the collar themselves for thinking, had they been too credulous.
It was Iraq which really eroded the trust, not just of the public, but of the media, I think. They felt they'd been taken for a ride by Blair.
What was increasingly was watching over that period was there was a real sense that journalism felt like it was falling out of love with politics.
We became more cynical and less easy to manipulate. And when we felt that we had been misled and misused, and possibly felt a bit guilty for the way we'd allowed ourselves to be used.
That's it. Beautiful. Oh, nice dig. What was that? I don't think we'll miss you. Nice.
Okay, they're on their way.
This will be a new government with new priorities, and I've been privileged to have been granted the great opportunity to serve my country.
Gordon felt really throughout his time that the media didn't rate or respect his intellect, his knowledge, his depth. He felt that the media were shallow and superficial.
Are we talking about policy? And perhaps in the next interview you'll give me a chance to develop
Well,
policy.
we want to talk to you at length about policy in the debate, so we look forward to that.
I will talk about policy in interviews. I'll be going around the country.
Well, we will try and get as many answers as we can on that. Thank you very much indeed, Gordon Brown. Thank you.
See you.
You're staying here, you're staying here.
No. Okay.
During the 2010 election, Gordon Brown asked to be fitted up with a microphone so we could see him going to talk to ordinary citizens.
You can't say anything about the immigrants because you're saying that but all these Eastern Europeans what are coming in, where are they flocking from?
He just sort of got into his car, unfortunately with his Sky microphone on his lapel still.
Thanks very much.
And broadcast to the nation.
That was a disaster. Well, just... Okay. Should never have put me with that woman. Just a sort of bigoted woman that said she used to be a lady. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Do you think we're right to broadcast it?
Love and war.
The debates were coming this way.
Prime Minister, will you take part in a TV debate with Mr Cameron and Mr Clegg?
I think David Cameron felt like it was the right thing to do, to showcase the arguments on television. But it was a massive game changer in the election.
During the first debate, they suddenly realised, Nick Clegg, oh shit, he's got the most easy job in the world. He can just stand there and make pot shots left, right and centre. So you're automatically looking at this thing and saying, hang on a minute, this isn't a level playing field.
The first ever televised prime ministerial debates in the UK.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. The disappointing thing about actually doing the debates is that all the reality of it is that time you spend debating with your opponents is wasted time. Time you spend looking down the camera and making your point is good time. So they're much less of a debate than some of the proponents think.
There was a moment when Nick Clegg looked like he was suddenly going to turn politics upside down and really cut through.
Don't let anyone tell you that this time it can't be different. It can.
I don't really understand why you thought they were that important. So tell me why they're so important.
Well, all I would say to you is that the research did show that in that campaign, there was increased public engagement with the debate. And that, to me, was job done.
You go first. The head of the queue.
We also have to put people at the end so we'll have a squish more. Okay, here we go.
Well, this is the first coalition government for 65 years.
David Cameron, I think, was seen somewhat as a kind of cuckoo in the nest. He was perceived as not being a red and tooth and claw conservative. He was socially liberal and doing some things that they didn't like.
He wanted things to be professional, I think, and he obviously admired Tony Blair in a lot of ways.
David Cameron's out now. David Cameron's out now. Guys.
You know, he would quite often ask me about Blair and what it was like, and you know how we did certain pictures.
If you're in my position, the Conservatives had lost 3 elections in a row to someone called Tony Blair. He was clearly quite effective at communicating and explaining. The biggest lesson in many ways of what Tony Blair did is he made changes to his party to make it electable, and that is substance.
There was a sense of doing things differently. We had webcam, which felt very modern at the time.
Right, welcome to webcam. Watch out, BBC. Oh. I'll do it in a minute. Well, watch out, BBC and ITV. You know, we're coming after you. This is, I think, when we set up Web Cameron, which I know everyone laughed at the time, it was an attempt to communicate directly with people, with voters, to talk about what you were doing and why you were doing it. And in many ways, that was ahead of its time.
We were just on the frontier of, you know, the real explosion in terms of digitisation. You could, unfiltered and unmediated, speak to people.
I rather regret that we didn't stick with it and do more of it. Not because I wanted to bypass the media and ignore them, not a bit.
But you were
No, but we were, well, it's important. If you're running a political party, which I did for almost 11 years, and a country for 6 years, the process of communicating is incredibly important.
Was he very image conscious?
Very much so.
And I think it's right that we should replace that.
We'd been on a visit to a naval base.
Royal Navy, I think Plymouth has a great future. It's been lovely coming here. Thanks very much.
Coming back, and he'd literally said, I need to buy some fish for dinner tonight with my wife, Sam. The motorcade pulled into this, I think it was Morrison's, in Plymouth. And I said to his press secretary, Gabby Burton at the time, so, can I take a picture? And she thought about it, and she sat there and she went, okay, go on then. And he went around the supermarket with a basket. And it was very impromptu, it wasn't a photo op. The team just seemed to get bigger and bigger. And it did get more, you know, it was quite relaxed at the beginning.
Should we give your teachers a round of applause for all they do? Very good.
And it got more and more controlled as time went on.
Of governance for the Queen, I'm quite pleased about.
I think it's the first time Downing Street started employing events people who are literally just there to manage the media.
Very good, thank you. So what are we doing today? Who can tell me what we're up to today?
So things like Hug a Husky, Hug a Hoodie and all that, I mean, they were things you staged for yourself, as it were.
Well, I didn't actually say either of those things, just for the record. There we are, that's part of the problem, is that you highlight, I was one of the first Conservative leaders anywhere in the world to highlight the issue of climate change, and that is immediately turned into the phrase that I'm not going to repeat that you just used. Over the past few days, the whole country has been shocked by the revelations about the phone hacking scandal. That these people could have had their phones hacked into in order to generate stories for a newspaper is simply disgusting.
What became the Leveson inquiry blew up on your watch. You gave evidence to Leveson. You said we were perhaps getting too close with reference to Rebecca Brooks and others.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Did you see her every weekend or most weekends at the period 2008-2009?
I think not every weekend.
Those texts between David Cameron and Rebecca Brooks, and I think what it did is expose in a slightly Succession-like way where the strings are.
Occasionally he would sign them off LOL, lots of love. Actually, until I told him it meant laugh out loud, and then he didn't sign them like that anymore.
Politicians, Labour, Conservative, have become too close. The relationship was too close, and when issues and problems came up about use of information and all the rest of it, not enough was done.
Do we want a press which is too sort of in bed with the government? No, we don't, because the whole point of you is that you check, you scrutinise, you ask difficult questions. So it is important that the two are separated.
I will go to Parliament and propose that the British people decide our future in Europe.
You had a pro-immigration Tory Mayor of London advocating for leave.
They were wrong then, my friends, and they are wrong now.
It gave the campaign a legitimacy. That is the physical presence of Boris Johnson.
Taking back control.
So I'm Thomas Spark.
As Chief Technical Officer of the Vote Leave campaign,
Please join me in welcoming Vote Leave.
I started when there were only a few employees, and my responsibility was setting up a data, digital and infrastructure of the campaign to ensure that it could galvanise the UK population.
Every week we send £350 million to Brussels. Money that's wasted.
In a sense, it was sort of Project Fear versus Project Fear, and theirs was scary.
Do you believe that we can do it?
We were able to achieve more on some of the online live watching than was reported of the hits in the news at 10. The campaign could put out messages to a much wider and more interested audience. We could put 40-minute speeches up. The mainstream media weren't interested in doing more than 10 seconds.
Do I feel that the Leave campaign played fast and loose with the truth? Yes. Do I think broadcasters handled themselves in glory in terms of actually working out what was going on? No.
It's fascinating talking to people who are in the Leave campaign, and they're saying, we looked at people's preferences and then we gave them information which tickled those preferences.
The way social media sites have used algorithms to create an echo chamber for people to hear more and more of their own opinions and prejudices, that has actually increased division in politics in our countries. Then we need to deal with that. How do we get back to a sense of having impartial and independent media?
Think of the damage you could do with that, Boris.
The problem was that in pursuit of balance, I actually think that many of the media lost their objectivity.
The British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path. And as such, I think the country requires fresh leadership to take it in this direction.
I have just been to Buckingham Palace, where Her Majesty the Queen has asked me to form a new government. This was a moment of calm. Theresa May managed to unite both sides. So I felt that the media coverage in itself was pretty positive, quite complimentary. However, behind the scenes, it was difficult.
When somebody's feeling awkward and nervous, it comes through in the pictures, and it was always difficult to get natural pictures.
I don't think she felt at home doing media stuff. I think she felt threatened by that sort of environment.
Going to Africa that time, when she started dancing, she seemed to come into her own then. And it played really well the next day in the papers. You know, the papers seemed to love it. You know, it's like she's found herself. Another 3 times in Africa, you couldn't stop her dancing after that.
I tried to explain to her that people just want to know that their Prime Minister is like them.
I mean, I find with her, interviewing her, I don't interview much as Prime Minister because that's...
Because we wouldn't let you, Adam.
Yeah, exactly.
At a time when you needed the media at least on board, if not on side, she was fundamentally, through no fault of her own, ill-equipped from a communications point of view to sell what she was trying to sell.
I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
He was the king over the water. He only just had to pick up the phone and all of you were there. A mutually beneficial media played the game with him while he was at City Hall. What it did in the public's mind was say he's different from Cameron, he's different from Blair and Brown, he's different from all these conventional politicians.
Mr. Johnson, hello, we'll be with you very shortly.
Yeah, good. How long do you need me for? Because I've got to do loads of interviews.
I'll be with you in about 1 minute.
Okay, thanks.
That kind of sense of lampooning and self-deprecation and getting himself in the middle of the headlines probably in many ways took him all the way to the doors of Downing Street.
It is all the more fundamental to his appeal at a time when trust and faith in politics is low. I think that's what gives Boris Johnson his opportunity. If they're all the same, and if we can't really trust them, we might as well have one who makes us laugh.
At the beginning, the relationship was mutually beneficial. He was, and in many ways still is, the ultimate kind of provocateur.
Can you go back about 10 feet? I remember being in Israel with him as mayor, and he went around a fish market, and he picked up every fish on every stand and held it above his head. He knew what he made a good picture. I remember being in Tokyo when he was playing rugby and knocked this 6-year-old boy flying. And then you remember all the, the famous picture of him hanging on the zip wire. I think David Cameron famously said, for any other politician that would have been a disaster, but for Boris it's a triumph.
When Boris Johnson had just won the election, it was a great victory.
The work is now being stepped up to make 2020 a year of prosperity and growth and hope, and to deliver a parliament that works for the people. Thank you all very much, and happy Christmas. Thank you.
I knew him a bit from The Telegraph, so I messaged saying, well, congratulations, that was a result. Assumed that he would be on the programme and was told no, he won't be coming on the Today programme, nobody will. And with no particular explanation, but what that was a moment of challenge of power or the system. And of course, Boris Johnson has just subverted every rule of journalism ever since.
We'll get to the bus.
Prime Minister, the nurse.
Oh, bless you, thank you. He peddles optimism. I think that the difficulty that Boris has had is that he's a more natural campaigner than he is an actual ruler.
Just the Queen first. Yeah.
And the difficulty of actually making decisions that you have to then live with day in and day out is something that I think all Prime Ministers find difficult. And I wonder whether he in particular finds difficult.
Personality and having a character today that's interesting to people, that is a big part of politics, much bigger than in my day. And because there's not that in-depth dive on policy in the same way that there used to be,
thank you.
You can be an entertainer and win.
Right.
Is that something that the public really want, or is it that that's all they're being given?
Mr. Johnson, can the nation trust you? Are you hiding from media scrutiny, sir? What are you afraid of?
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Good evening, and apologies for disturbing your Saturday evening with more news of COVID, and I can assure you I wouldn't do this unless it was absolutely necessary. But
How did you think of the way that news conferences were used during the pandemic?
Well, that was more like the old days in one way.
You know, the pandemic came along and there was a need for the Prime Minister to be seen by the public every single day.
Because of the numbers, sheer numbers of people that were tuning in. Live in your TV, in your living room, was Boris Johnson day after day giving you that leadership.
good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us.
But then, when the pandemic's over, people just go back to the way it is.
As we emerge from the pandemic, as we leave all that behind, will Johnson's administration revert to no press conferences other than when it suits them? Probably. I think personally that's a mistake. I think people want to see their Prime Minister, they want to see them held to account.
What we would say is we are the conduit to the public, and the more
But
information...
you're not the only conduit to the public anymore, and that's the problem. I would have said you were the only conduit to the public, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You're not the only conduit to the public
What's the
now.
alternative?
Broadcasting yourself.
Hi folks, I'm here at Hexham Hospital in the North.
Let's just record this, let's just film that, let's just post it there.
Boris was in the North today. Boris was doing this today. Boris was announcing a new train line today. Unfortunately, politicians will side towards that because it's comfort. It's not as risky.
It's not curated, it's not challenged.
No, I agree.
They've now got a team of their own people. David Cameron tried to bring in his own photographer back in 2010, got murdered in the press for it and had to drop him after 2 weeks. Boris has now got 3 in-house photographers.
Obviously it didn't work out and we had to
Yeah,
change the model a bit.
Ironically now, there's a whole team of them.
Well, Boris has always been able to get away with things that mere mortals can't.
Mateusz, the Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, the Prime Minister of Poland, we've known each other for years.
Does it really matter now that most of his spontaneous appearances are to a camera over which he has full control, saying what he likes without being challenged? Does that matter?
Absolutely it matters, because I think Prime Ministers should be challenged. I think questions should be asked. I think they should be made to defend what they're doing, and they should be made to defend what they're doing not necessarily on their own terms in front of their own camera person. Is the taxpayer paying for what could easily be just simple government propaganda?
He doesn't do unstructured news conferences. He makes a lot of use of social media. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I have mixed feelings about it. Look, it's important for a government to be accountable. That is the bottom line.
Boris Johnson visited a hospital in Northumberland. One of the papers made a big deal out of the fact that he wasn't wearing a mask. And that was only shown because there was a wire agency photographer there. If you look at the pictures on Flickr issued by the government that day, there wasn't a single picture of the Prime Minister not wearing a mask. He had a mask on in all of them. So had there not been a news photographer there, they would have been unaware of him missing the mask.
The mask on, come on. Thank you.
If politicians doing their own social media, their own videos, and then demanding that the public service broadcasters have to take all this uncritically fed by them, then that is a very dangerous, slippery slope.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, you said that there's a 1 in a million chance of a no deal. It's not true, is it, Mr. Johnson?
I think the tragedy of that for now is that it probably sets a precedent for future governments.
Johnson, do you not want to answer my question? Well, we're going to have a deal or no deal. 1 in a million chance, eh?
Could you have done more, do you think, to expose within the confines of balanced journalism, which the major broadcaster stands for? Do you feel culpable in some way?
I don't think we are culpable for that, because I don't think that we have indulged in giving soft coverage to politicians because they're entertaining. And I think in Britain, it's something that we've generally been pretty aware of.
There's no point sort of who do you blame? Do you blame politicians? Do you blame journalists? But I would say the debate today is far less healthy. I think the public are far less engaged in it, even though there is more media than ever. And I think that's a bit of a problem for the health of our democracy.
We've got to try and have a relationship, still distant and confrontational by moments, but understanding that you've got legitimate questions, but we've also got a responsibility to explain what we're doing. And can we try and find a bit of space for both those things to coexist?
When the public understands that it pays a price for the entertainment as the key question in political leadership, that's when this thing shifts. And the question in my mind, is the media going to be in a position where it's actually able to answer that demand from the public? Or has it become so changed by social media and by the need to just chase after every passing news wave that it finds itself without the capacity to offer what the public actually wants?
And what's the answer to that question?
I don't know. I think it's a really open question today.
These people do have power over our lives. We do try and hold politicians to account. I always think the first function is to make sure that someone in power communicates what they're doing to the viewing public, and I'm the medium from that. The second thing is to challenge it.